Ladies and gentlemen, if we'd bring the Budget and Finance Committee to order, get started. First item on the agenda is RS 2015-69. Sponsors Pridemore approves an application for a major cultural institution grant from the Tennessee Arts Commission to the Metro Nashville Arts Commission. Do I have a motion? Duly second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-70, Pridemore Purdue, the sponsors accepts a grant from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to the Office of Emergency Management to recoup eligible costs incurred as a result of the February 2015 severe winter ice storms and flooding. Approved and duly seconded. Council Lady Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. I was just curious, how much of our expenses are covered by this? Because it didn't say in the analysis. It gave us the $500 and some odd $1,000 figure as to what we were getting, but how much of our expenses is that covering it?
100%. There's no local cast match.
Good answer. Thank you.
Councilman Mendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my question was really about the nature of the in-kind match. The way it read to me, it felt like the subtext is that the state will give us this money, but we need to fix some things that maybe caused the expense in the first place. Is that the reasoning?
Laura, are you back there? She can take the details, but generally speaking, some of these expenses will have already been incurred by many of the departments, and they will allow you to account those normal expenses toward match purposes. So, Laura, can you confirm that?
That's exactly correct.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. I had a similar question regarding the in-kind match. It seems to be about 12% of the total cost incurred, and I just wondered, is that fairly standard, or?
The way that this grant was written, or the way that we are reimbursed for this, is FEMA will take 75% of the expenses we submit. TEMA will then take 12% of the expenses we submit, and we are expected to absorb the other 12.5%.
Okay.
So they just divide it out that way so that the expenses 100% are covered, but that's the way that they cover the cost.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no others in the queue, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-71, Pridemore and Purdue sponsors, approves an intergovernmental agreement between the Metro Nashville Police Department and the Tennessee State University for extra duty police services. Do I have a motion? Duly seconded. We have council in the queue. Council Lady Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. How much is this going to cost and who's paying?
Captain, we have police. They are actually, well, I'll let him tell you. I'll chair the meeting and let the right people tell you the answers.
TSU is actually paying us to provide officers off duty.
Is that answer? Okay. Council Lady Bircher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I be
Stand by. I'm sorry. Hold on a minute. Let's try it again.
Can I be recorded as abstaining on this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Can be. Councilman Mendez.
Thanks. My question has to do with, in the analysis, it refers to it as a renewal. Is there any change in the nature of the relationship with this agreement?
None. It's essentially extending what we've done several years with them, providing officers for off-duty events.
All right. Thank you.
Council Lady Dow.
I think you ask my question. So it's just mainly for off-duty, special event services, what this is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is a typical of what we've done before.
Okay, seeing no others in the queue, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-72, Pridemore and Henderson, the sponsors, approves an amendment to a grant from the Nashville Public Library Foundation to Nashville Public Library to fund a part-time volunteer services staff position and to recruit and place college volunteers throughout the library system. Duly seconded. Seeing any discussion, seeing none in the queue, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-73, Pridemore and Gilmore, the sponsors, approves amendments to a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to the Metro Board of Health to enhance access to a comprehensive continuum of high-quality, community-based care for low-income individual and family with HIV disease. Do I have a motion? And duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-74, Pridemore as a sponsor, authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the claims of Horace Scott Harris and Terry Lynn Harris individually and as the next of kin to Chandler Harris against Metro government in amount of $300,000 to be paid out of the self-insured liability fund. Do I need a second? Duly seconded. Any discussion? Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wondered if someone could speak to what the discipline was for the truck driver and sort of what the training is ahead of time to try to prevent those from happening in the first place.
Okay, they have, there was a letter that I believe that Mr. Macy sent out, if you had an opportunity to see that, for all those who may have some questions.
Yes, this is Mark Macy. It's my understanding that the driver was facing pending disciplinary charges, and in the election of pursuing that process, he decided to resign prior to that action.
Council Lady Weiner.
I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay. Councilman Mendez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These questions are for Mr. Macy also. I did see his memorandum and appreciate that. I have a few questions. First of all, were any of the actions taken required by TOSHA? Is that where the requirements came from?
TOSHA had prepared a report for us. In that report, there were 2 violations. Both those violations have been addressed by Public Works. And then the update of the safety program is entirely our action to basically bring it up to current date.
Thank you. And then the other question, I don't necessarily need you to go through bullet point by bullet point, but some of the bullet points in the memo made me wonder whether these are completely new or reworking existing programs. For example, under the immediate actions, the 3rd bullet point talks about implementing formalized training for new employees. And I guess I'm trying to figure out how many of these steps were really brand new versus changed. Had there been a new employee training previously?
The new employee training program prior to this event was more on-the-job training versus train everything prior to going out in the field. And so we've changed that to that the new employees as well as any temporary employees have all their training prior to going out into the field.
And same question about the next one, about the safety meetings weekly. Is that brand new?
I believe that the frequency is certainly new. I don't know the frequency in the past program. The weekly ones are something we implemented.
All right, if one of us wanted to learn more about what was new and what was modified, we just get with you offline?
That'd be great. I'd be glad to invite you over and we can walk through the whole thing.
All right, thank you.
Seeing no other accused, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. RS 2015-75, Pride Moore sponsor, authorizes Metro Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Rontez T. Parker against Metro government, an amount of $40,500 to be paid out self-insured liability bond. Motion made and duly seconded. Seeing no discussion in the queue, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. BL 2015-45, Pride Moore sponsor, amends the Metro Code concerning the disposition of certain properties acquired through the delinquent tax sale process. Do I have a motion? Motion, and do I have a second? Duly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. BL 2015-67, Councilman O'Connell and Pride Moore, the sponsors, authorize the creation of a Gulch Central Business Improvement District for Metro Nashville and appoints a corporation to act as an advisory board to the district with the necessary powers and authority to carry out the purposes and intent of the district. Do I have a motion? And duly seconded. Councilman O'Connell?
Yes, so this is basically a 10-year renewal of a business improvement district for the Gulch that was originally created in 2006, and Tom Turner is here from the Nashville Downtown Partnership to answer any questions about the renewal process. It would be seeking renewal for another 10-year period.
Okay. Do you have an amendment?
Oh, and we do have an amendment, yes.
Okay, you need to move.
I will move approval of the amendment.
All in favor of the amendment? Any discussion on the amendment? I have a lot in the queue, so I don't know if it's for the amendment or for the, okay. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Amendment passes.
I would move to reconsider the original as amended.
Okay, we have some discussion. Councilman Glover.
This is really more of just a basic question here, realizing it's already been in place. In the event one of these, I guess corporations I'll call it, is dissolved and there's been bonds that have been issued on their behalf, who is ultimately responsible for those if it in fact flows that way? And I'm not sure if I read it correctly or incorrectly. Mr. Jameson?
It won't.
The state legislation.
Hold on a minute. There.
The state legislation authorizes the creation of a board for purposes of management. In this case, it's the Downtown Partnership that operates as the district management board. Your question is if that board dissolves?
My question is and I don't know if necessarily bonds would be taken out to do sidewalk improvements or anything that maybe they oversee. If that happens and the board ultimately dissolves, who is ultimately responsible for those bonds? I mean, is there separate monies that are collected in that geographical area?
It's not bond money. It's maintaining a separate revenue account.
Okay.
Which the council approves as part of its budget. This would be 2 business improvement districts that we oversee, but it's maintaining a separate revenue account, not bond money.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Council Lady Henderson.
Mr. Jameson, my question is, in reading your analysis, the assessment rate varies quite a lot from year to year. And I'm wondering, the board, are they elected? How do they go about those decisions? Do they vote on that assessment every year? Is that a vote of the board, a vote of the membership? How does that work?
That's correct. Historically, it was originally set at about, I believe, 20 cents. Back in 2006, there was a significant increase the following year with the understanding that it would then reduce because it was essentially a startup improvement district. It went up, I think, near 40 cents, I think I'm looking at Mr. Turner if my history recollection is correct. Because it's essentially established, it's graduated down now. It's going to go from 20 cents to 18, then gradually 15, and remain at that rate through 2026. The board approves all of that. Eventually, increases, decreases come before the council, but the board does take the initial vote on those rate settings.
Thank you. And then just lastly, their board is appointed or elected by their membership or participation? How does that work?
I believe they are elected by the membership. Mr. Turner is approaching the podium.
They're elected by the property owners.
Okay.
Annually.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Cooper.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Turner. I had if you would comment on the overall revenue and spending for is it the 10 years that this is put in place? What are your revenues? What are you spending? What's the balance in the accounts? That kind of comment. Thank you.
So for the first year of this term, which would begin in January of 2017, it's contemplated the budget will be very close to $480,000. It's based on development that's coming online, so there's no exact number. We don't know what the assessments will be until sometime in May of 2016. But of that $480,000, about a little over 80% of it is going to be for some basic maintenance, which is clean and safe services. There'll be some landscaping and some banners. It's all specific to that neighborhood. And I believe the number from memory is 83% of it is dedicated to clean, safe, and attractive. For 17%, you'll have administration, some policy and advocacy work on things related to what's going on in the neighborhood. So in the petition that the property owners signed, they limited any annual increase to 5% of the budget. Not knowing exactly where development's going to go, I would expect that they'll try to keep it somewhere underneath the 5%, and it will be to provide those services. There's very little latitude in state law. Once a district's established, they're pretty much going to spend about that percentage on clean, safe, and attractive, and about that percentage on administrative and other things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council Lady Dow.
Thanks. I think he answered one of my questions. For just clarification, are the taxes that's collected for this special district, does it go through our Caldwell's office?
It does. It's collected by the trustee.
Okay. And is it at a special percentage on it's added to is it the sales tax?
No, it's on the assessed valuation of the property.
Property tax.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear about that.
Thank you. Councilman Mendez.
Thank you. I have another question for Mr. Turner. I couldn't tell from reading the ordinance whether the intent was to keep the existing board in place or to have the board reconstituted when this ordinance gets passed.
I think it's the board's intent to keep the existing board in place. They do have term limits. They cycle off after 2 terms. And so it's kind of basically with 13 board members and 2 3-year terms, we're going to cycle people off on a regular basis. So almost every fall, well, we do it in December, there'll be new board members to be voted on. And in the bylaws of the organization that's set up, it dictates that there'll be a resident, there'll be a small property owner, a large property owner, a commercial owner, so that there's consistency in how it's applied. Also, just for your information, they look at it geographically too, so that they haven't picked all 13 board members from the same block. So they look at it. But I think it's their intent that the board would provide continuity going forward.
Okay. I only asked because the ordinance read like the board was starting over again, but that's fine if that's the intent.
It could have been a carryover.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Seeing no other in the queue, all in favor? I'm sorry. All in favor of the bill as amended? All in favor? Opposed? Bill passes. BL 2015-68, Pride, Moore, Murphy, and Withers are sponsors. Amends the Metro codes relative to employees' benefits to allow assignment of retirement plans benefits pursuant to a qualified domestic relations order. Have a motion? Duly second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. That concludes the Budget and Finance Committee.